Hi, and welcome to Follow the Reader, a mini video series in which I interview a member of our community to share our thoughts on books, reading, and the library. My name is Karen Leahy, and I am the Digital Services Librarian at the South Kingstown Library. Today, I'm joined by Craig Stanley. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Hey, Karen. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Can you tell us about what you do in the South Kingstown community?
Yes, I am the Chief of Emergency Medical Services in the town of South Kingstown. I have been with the town about 5.5 years.
Great. Well, that's awesome. And can you tell us, what are you reading right now?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I was in a meeting this past week with Laurel Clark, and she said, "Hey, I have a question." And you never know what that question is. It's generally being a paramedic, I think it's a medical question. And she goes, "Do you read books?" And I thought it was like a trick question. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I do." So yeah, and that's a loaded question because I'm reading 2 books and just finished one, and it's crazy with the time of trying to find it, but I do enjoy reading the books. The one book I just finished was The Team Arrivals by Kearns, Doris Goodwin. Yeah. And it's about Abraham Lincoln and leadership. And it's taken me forever to finish it. I had gotten the book quite a while ago when I was at graduate school and used it for some material, then ended up reading it and then getting the audio version of it. So I finally finished reading that. Then another book I recently finished is called 1,000 Naked Strangers by Kevin Hazzard, who was a paramedic in Atlanta.
Okay.
I spent 30 years in Atlanta as a paramedic, and that book is about being a paramedic and the culture of EMS, and it's quite interesting the way he wrote it. Now I will have to give the disclaimer: it's very raw.
Okay.
It's graphic.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you think it is, but I think he left his career as a paramedic to become a writer, and I think he's done a good job, because if you read it, if you're someone that's not in the field, he explains or really describes how things are. Okay. And you're almost there running the call with him, and then he refers to the culture, and really then as a paramedic reading it, you're right there with the call with him. You recognize the smells, the sounds, the sights and whatnot. So I found it a pretty good book for me. And then the other book I'm reading is Why We Ride.
Okay.
I ride motorcycles. So that's kind of my outlet, my hobby. I've always ridden motorcycles, and this book is by a psychologist who wrote this about why people ride motorcycles. So I really got into it. The book, he does a good job of talking about, and then people will go, you're a paramedic, but you ride a motorcycle. So he talks about that, about the dangers and how people who do that, how the psyche. So yeah. So the struggle for me is trying to find the time to read all the books,
Right. That's really interesting, though. And is one of those, would you say, is your favorite book you've read recently?
Yeah, I would have to say this is. I would, because it's probably because I ride motorcycles, and he talks about, kind of, I can really relate to it because he talks about just the journey of riding one, and the things that you do. And then what's interesting, he discusses how you have family members and how do you balance your time, because that's your love, but you have other commitments, work, family, and then he talks about how do you balance that. So yeah, and it's a positive thing. I read a lot of leadership books. That was one of my major things in the graduate school studying, and then of course I'm in a leadership position, so I spent a lot of time reading leadership and really learning. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Yeah. So I try to look at history and how people, and read about how people make decisions and learn from that. And then, the paramedic book was really, for me, was therapeutic. I could really relate to some of the things he discussed. And it was written, he was a paramedic in Atlanta at Grady Hospital, which is kind of like Rhode Island Hospital, except about 10 times bigger. But some of the places that he ran calls, I know exactly where it's at. So the author, I didn't know him at the time. We've become friends recently. But at the time when he was a paramedic and I was a paramedic in Atlanta, we didn't know each other. So we've developed kind of a friendship. But I try to read things like that. I'm not really into fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I mostly read like leadership history. I'm a history buff. And then, things like the motorcycle stuff. It's fun. It's positive.
Great. And I think we got a little peek of it, but what do you use for a bookmark? Do you have a real bookmark? Do you just use bound paper?
Oh, I have this very fancy folded Post-it note.
Perfect.
It's light color. It's thick. It's I can get more. I have plenty of Post-it notes. So if I had a real nice bookmark, I'd probably lose it. So I find this is used for my reading.
Awesome. And do you have a favorite reading snack or drink?
Yeah, I'll get some popcorn.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and I have to be careful because I'll be eat it right up all. And then to drink, just a regular drink. Nothing special.
Okay. And do you have a favorite place to read?
I find, well, with audiobooks, I do a lot of driving or spend time in the car at some point. So I enjoy that because I'm by myself. And I'm finding with the audiobooks is I may read the book, but then listen to the audio and catch things that I didn't catch in the book.
Yeah.
My attention span, I have attention span of a squirrel on the road. So, read things. But at home, I usually in the evening, in our kitchen, there's like a bar. And everybody might be in the living room, and then I spend some time reading, in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm able to do that. Mostly, I have to sit and read. If I lay down to read, I'll fall asleep.
Yeah. And what do you love about libraries?
I think because when you go, there's so much there that you don't think is there. You know what I mean? You start looking around and go, wow, there's a book on this. There's a book on that.
Yeah.
You realize how much is out there, and then you're like, well, how do I have time to read this? You know what I mean? But I think it's just, you just don't realize how much is out there to read.
Yeah.
Anything, so I like that.
Okay. And do you have any special memory of a library that you could share with us? It could be in South Kingston or anywhere.
I'm trying to think of, I've been to the New York library, the library in New York.
Yeah.
Going through New York, and I thought that was pretty, to go in there.
Yeah.
That was quite impressive.
Yes.
Go in there and just sit, and I'm reading a book here in New York, the big library. But I like the one, the one in South Kingstown. I just like it because my family's from here.
Yeah.
And my mom went to elementary school. So now I think that was an elementary school or grammar school at one time. The buildings around there. So it's kind of neat. I love the old buildings,
Yeah.
It's just very, very neat.
Yeah, they're definitely very beautiful buildings.
Yeah.
Well, that is all the questions I have for you today. So thank you so much for being on Follow the Reader. Have a great rest of your day.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.